So today we're doing a detail on a Toyota Sienna. It's pretty gross, lots of garbage, just lots of shit in it. So we got these garbage bags full. I already started working on it. Filled these garbage bags up with garbage already. I'll put some pictures here so you can see what it was like before we started. Go ahead and check out the inside, how dirty it still is. Stains on the carpets, just a bunch of loose dirt, French fries, fast food. So we're just gonna get started on cleaning it here. I'm gonna start by removing all the mats from the vehicle because we'll wash these separately with the pressure washer. Probably gonna go over them with the vacuum before I go over them with the pressure washer. They're really dirty. So that's our first step. We're gonna take out all the mats. And then second step, we're gonna go just start vacuuming all the inside. Just get as much of the crap out as we can. And then see where we go from there.
When you're reaching into cracks of cars under seats and stuff like that, it's important to wear gloves so that you don't grab anything sharp or gross that you don't want your hand to be touching.
Make sure that you get under the seats in these kind of minivans especially, because there can be a lot of stuff, if you look in there, built up under there that you can't really get with the vacuum, so got to get the seats up.
This is the last segment of the carpet that I had to vacuum. Just make sure you're getting around all the cracks and crevices so that you can get everything all cleaned up. There's a lot of salt and loose dirt in this car, so made sure to get all that. Our next step is going to be to use the air compressor and blow out any loose dirt in the cracks that are hard to get with the vacuum.
The next step is to spray out the interior, like all the cracks. If you get in here, you can see, come on up here, the cracks like this, all this junk and crumbs. You got to spray everything out. Get under the seats, the cracks on the seats up here. If you look right in there, there's always some cracks in the seats. I like to get the cup holders and just, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's always junk under the seat that is missed with the vacuum. So the air hose does a really good job getting that stuff out.
Right here I blow the air from behind the seat in the crack forward just to move all of that junk up forward, so it's in an easier spot for me to vacuum right up front on the carpet up there. There's always a ton of stuff under the seat that you can get out if you just use the air hose for a couple minutes and try at it with a couple different angles of spraying it. And then the cracks of the seats always have some buildup in there, but it's usually pretty easy to get out if you just give a quick spray over it. Now I'm just going to go over it again with the vacuum. All the stuff that I freed up with the air hose is now in a place that I can vacuum it much easier, so I'm just going to go over and vacuum again. Right here is where we clean the carpet. I usually use a spot cleaner or extractor, but these carpets were really dirty, so I decided to use my pressure washer and just go ahead and spray all of the stains and all the salt just to try to get it out. Some of these stains were really deep and weren't necessarily able to come out, but most of it came out pretty well, especially the salt stains. This is where I spray out the door jambs because they get really dirty and the pressure washer does a good job of getting all the dirt out of them.
Now we use the vacuum here again to extract all the water and hopefully get those stains out, but they look pretty deep in there. I'm not sure if they're going to come out completely, but here we go.
This part is where it's important that you have a wet dry shop vac, because if you have just a regular old shop vac, you're not going to be able to suck up any water without screwing up your vacuum, so you got to make sure your vacuum is wet and dry.
We got most of the stains out. There's some deep ones that aren't going to come, but the salt stains came out pretty good and it's looking a lot better than it did. And I'm just going to repeat that for the rest of the floor, even though it's not as dirty, just get it cleaned up a little better.
It's important that when you're using this much water pressure washing the floor, that you leave the windows cracked and the heat on the floor, because otherwise it's going to stay really wet, and if you have the heat on the floor, it helps dry it out and make it so the car doesn't stay wet and have like a weird smell to it. And then just do the same thing to the carpet in the back. The stuff I'm spraying on the plastic here is called degreaser. I use Purple Power brand, and I use a 10-to-1 mix water to degreaser, and that gets the job done for plastic without being too hard on the plastic or anything. It's good to spray the degreaser in all of the door pockets and all the places that are hard to reach. I usually would spray it, and then if it's like a tough crack to get, I would use an air hose, but I was able to do it with my fingers here. Most of the time I would be using an air hose, but I was fine doing it by hand here. You just want to scrub the inside of the door pockets and cup holders and things like that just to get them cleaner and look much better. I also use the degreaser to get any dust off the dashboard. I just soak my rag a little bit with degreaser and then just wipe everything down that looks like it has any dirt or dust on it that's plastic throughout the whole vehicle. The cup holders are super important because when the customer gets in their car, one of the first things that they're gonna see is their cup holders, and they're always really dirty from spills and just storing things in there. Crumbs and food get in there. So I soak it down with degreaser pretty well, and sometimes I would use my air hose, other times I just scrub it by hand. This here is a perfect example of how the degreaser works. You can see a lot of dirt that's on top of the center console, and I just have to spray it down and rub it just a little bit, and it gets all the brown off there and just leaves it just the gray like it looked before it had any dirt on it. Right here I'm using the degreaser to get rid of stains on the leather. You have to be careful though, because if you use too much degreaser, it can drip and leave discoloration on the leather seats, so you got to be very careful with how much you're using here. After the leather's all cleaned up, I use this leather conditioner. It's Meguiar's brand. And I basically just spray all the leather seats and use this pad right here to spread it around on the seats. Make sure to get all of the leather around all of the edges of the seats, the backs of the seats, the sides of the seats, the top of the seats, the headrest. Everything on the seats that's leather. This just protects the seat. Keeps the leather from cracking any worse than it already has, and it's just good for the leather.
So then the last step would be to armor all. We buy our armor all in like bulk, and then we put it into these spray bottles. So what I do is I just spray the door. This is just gonna give it a nice shiny finish. When you get up on these spots, you don't want to spray up here because you're going to get it on the window. So what I like to do is soak the rag a little bit, and then get up here so you can get all the cracks. You just want to go over and get all the plastic on all the doors and all of the interior, because then it'll all end with a nice shiny finish. It's good.
This step you actually want to do after the armor all, just in case you got anything on the windows. This is the last thing you want to do because it cleans the windows and anything that you got on it while detailing. Knocked the mirror off there, but it was easy to put back on. You also want to make sure to wash the mirror and the navigational screen and the odometer with Windex. This customer just wanted her interior cleaned, so we didn't have to worry about cleaning the outside, so we're done now. And this is how the finished product looks. A lot cleaner than it did before, and I'm happy with the result of it, and so was the customer.